Welcome to I Can't Believe It's Not News with Beth and Elizabeth.
Hi, welcome to I Can't Believe It's Not News, your favorite podcast about fake news. I'm Elizabeth.
And I'm Beth.
Welcome to the show. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, we have a little bit of follow-up from our last episode. Elizabeth, what's a flub?
That is when you accidentally share something fake thinking that it's real.
That's right. We decided that flub would be an awesome word to use for the unfortunate situations like Katie Couric found herself in when she shared a picture of an alligator or a crocodile in the streets of Houston. And it was
the unfortunate situation that so many people find themselves in, that I have probably found myself in a couple of times, even me.
Yeah. Actually, you know what? I have a really good example from this recent week. Did you hear about Jennifer Lawrence saying that the hurricanes were like the wrath of God for Trump being elected on the U.S.?
No.
I saw that. I didn't share it, but I didn't think about it either. And that
doesn't sound like something she would say.
Yeah, it wasn't. It was, in fact, not true at all. She had been asked a very specific question in an interview, and she gave an answer that had the word wrath and hurricane in it. But she did not say that. And I was like,
she just gave her answer, then walked away muttering something about Trump.
Right. But I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. I have a fake news podcast, and I didn't even think about, when I saw that, I didn't think that's not, I should look into that. That's not true. So if I had shared it, it would have been a flub, but I didn't share it because I didn't care.
Would have been a big old flub.
Yeah. A missed flub. So we do have an announcement to make. Elizabeth and I were searching cheap vacations, and we found out that it's actually a really good time to go to Florida for some reason.
Yeah, who knew, right?
Yeah, we're going to have rooftop views from the ground floor. And, it's bring your own water.
BYOW, yeah. Everywhere is oceanfront property now.
Everywhere. So Elizabeth and I are going to head off and do some work in Florida, and we're actually going to be gone for 3 weeks.
Yeah, we're going to be gone for a really long time. So
by the time you hear this episode, we'll actually already be knee deep in floodwaters. So, but if you see us being a little light on social media, and the next episode might be a little late.
Yeah,
we're not quite sure.
Not quite sure when it's going to drop for y'all.
I'm taking my microphone with me, and we'll see what happens. So we'll see. But for now, let's jump into this one, because something pretty big happened.
Yeah, it's a pretty big deal. Actually, there's just been a lot of revelations. We do a podcast about fake news, and this is most definitely fake news adjacent. It's all wrapped up in the big ball. And it's just a big ball of Russian ugliness involving Facebook.
Yeah. So it was revealed that Facebook has basically determined that at least $100,000 worth of ads were bought by Russia between 2015 and 2017. And
Russian groups and Russian advertisers are people who are pretending to be Americans.
Wait. So is this they're promoting Stoli vodka? I mean, because there are some things that Americans like to buy from Russia, right?
That's legitimate. The little dolls, the little nesting dolls.
Oh yeah, especially the ones, especially the one that it's Donald Trump, and then you open it up and it's Putin inside, and Yeah, those are fun. The nesting doll.
I bet they don't make those in Russia, though.
You don't think so? I think those are from China.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like everything else, yeah.
So, but this is a big deal because these are obviously not ads for like legitimate Russian companies where Americans would buy their goods. These were ads for more nefarious reasons. So, being a podcast about fake news, what are we going to do? We're going to break it down.
I was going to say, drink some Stoli and go sit in the corner and cry because it's overwhelming. Being a podcast about fake news is overwhelming these days.
So we are going to just stick to the Russian ads Facebook issue in this episode. We are not going to get into Twitter bots. That is literally a whole nother mini series, not even an episode. It's like a whole quarter of episodes. So for today, we are just going to talk about Facebook and the ads, and we are going to do our best to do a nice roundup for you guys, but there is a lot going on. So the first article that we chose to go over is by PBS, and it's called "A Russian Propaganda Group Purchased Ads on Facebook During the 2016 Election." Here's what that means.
And FYI, this PBS article rocks the fucking house. Everyone should check this out. This is like mandatory reading for every American.
It is legit. It's by Dan Cooney. I hope I said that right. And it was published on September 9th, 2017. So it starts out by saying, Facebook announced Wednesday that Russian propaganda organization used the social media platform to purchase $100,000 of political advertising. Here's what you need to know. So Facebook found 470 inauthentic accounts associated with approximately 3,000 political ads from June 2015 to May 2017. And the ad purchases and accounts are affiliated with a Russian troll farm, dubbed the Internet Research Agency, the IRA.
Oh, are those the people who manage my retirement?
I hope not.
Not the Irish Republican Army either.
No, it's not them either. This acronym is too used.
Why is this such a popular set of three letters for people to put together to describe such disparate things?
You would have thought they would have named it the Internet Research Socialism, and then they could have called it the IRS, and everybody would have hated it right from the beginning.
That's hilarious. Oh my gosh. I think that's so funny though that like they hire trolls.
Yes.
Like they hire people, like this is their job. Like the people like get up in the morning and they go to this building in St. Petersburg where this is, and they get their coffee and they sit down at their desk and they get to work spreading disinformation on American Facebook. And, then they get their little break and have their donut, And
do you think they have donuts or do you think they just have vodka?
Oh, come on. They're humans, Beth. They have donuts in their workspace.
They're trolls.
No, that's the thing, that these are like people. Like, I just really wonder what the monster.com job description looks like, looking for assholes with not very much going on, not particularly fond of democracy.
Do you think they had a words per minute limit that you had to be able to type?
I'm just wondering, what is this, I wonder how good the benefits are.
Benefits, world domination, and some healthcare.
Dental. No, you don't get any dental.
No dental. You get vision though, because you got to be able to see those computer screens.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, you have to have, because you get the carpal tunnel, so.
Yeah. That's true. So there was a video attached on this PBS article. Do you want to tell us about it?
Yeah, so the video is titled "Inside Russia's Propaganda Machine," and it's really interesting. It talks about what the media climate is like in Russia. And there's a man there on I guess, is it the state-sponsored TV that he's on?
I think pretty much all media in Russia is.
Well, it's not quite like it's not like BBC is like a British thing, you know. So, but it's all. I think it all has to be pretty much in line with what they want it to say.
It's on the RT network, which
is he on? Is he on RT? I don't think he is. Is he? Oh, okay. Anyway, his name is Kislyov, and he's like their Sean Hannity. He's ultra right wing, and he actually sees the news as a weapon that can be aimed at Russian enemies. This is his view, and he is not shy to tell you about it. He is said, and I quote, "If you can persuade someone, you don't have to kill them."
Right, because he says that it's better to persuade than kill. So if you can persuade them, then you don't have to kill them, which is better. And
thanks.
Yeah, I didn't know those were the only two options.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So they also talk about how Russia is the only country that can turn the USA into radioactive ash.
Yeah,
and
lovely.
Putin is the most qualified head of state on the planet. And so when I was thinking about that in regards to Fox News, I will say this. I don't hear Fox News saying things like that about other countries. I hear like American pride more as we think America is great because we love America, not because America can decimate every other country in the world and because our leader is like the one, you know.
Well, they haven't certainly been saying that for the past 8 years.
Right. Exactly. So I feel like
we'll have to see. We'll have to see now. I mean, they are, you know, I don't think that they're above criticizing Mexico or Germany or, you know, the Scandinavian countries, the people who they don't see as sharing their values.
Right. I think, though, what this Russian TV station's goal is, and this guy in particular, what his goal is to basically give Russian citizens such a sense of country that they know and believe that their country is the best, their leader is the best, and the West is evil.
Yeah.
And that's what you're supposed to, you know, every Sunday night, what you're supposed to go to bed feeling and knowing that the motherland is, you know, in the right, and everybody else who puts them down or who says that they're doing illegal things is wrong. Mm-hmm. And that we're just jealous.
Yeah.
You know,
speaking of RT, the Russia Today, that, according to this, the PBS video, is supposed to be like a BBC type thing. It's supposed to have an international audience, and it does reach 35 million people a day. And its goal is to be a counter to a pro-Western ideology that you hear on the international news stations like BBC and things like that.
Yeah.
And when they were interviewing the woman who works for RT, the example that they were giving is the Iraq War, saying that she said when all the choirs are singing the same thing, yep, it can be problematic. And I'm like, God damn it, that freaking Iraq War coming back again. Like, will not go away. Look, that was a really long time ago. So you don't have any more recent examples. Interesting.
Right.
Yeah. And so, yes, of course, fine. Have another view. But when you start peddling deceptions and misinformation, that's a whole other thing, which they talk about in the PBS, and how they talk about conspiracy theories. They have people on who are shady. And she says, well, when we find out that someone who we've had on as a quote unquote German expert turns out to be a Holocaust denier, then we don't have them back on.
Right.
Okay. Well, whatever. Right. You had a Holocaust denier on as your expert. Nice. Good journalism over there. Doing a good Google search to find out who your people are that you're turning to.
If they're taking people off that they find out aren't good guests after one turn, I think Fox News actually kind of needs to take a page from their book.
Right.
Fox News, listen up.
There are people who are unacceptable to be on your
Yeah, you're supposed to take assholes off. Jeffrey Lord. Okay. Now, then they talked to a former Russian troll, a guy who had worked at, and I'm going to forget, the Internet Research Agency. Mm-hmm. And he said, when you see lots of comments at night, all the same, it's the trolls getting to work. And he would basically come in, they would give him his orders for the day. And they give an example of one time he was supposed to create a negative attitude about Obama's policies. And they showed some of the posts that he had created comparing Obama to Hitler and all this kind of great stuff. He posted that onto 50 different websites. And between him and his colleagues, they did 600 posts over 70 websites in 12 hours. Then what happens is they talked about another story where there was a fake story that was made up about the kidnap and rape of a German student by Muslims.
Totally false.
Totally false. And even though the story was shown to be fake, it still sparked actual protests against Merkel.
Yeah.
Which is what they wanted it to do. That was the end goal.
And that's all you have to do. Right? Because you just have to plant this seed in the people's minds, and it has to get out there. No one is going to say like, oh, we got this wrong. And these fake news websites, they aren't going to retract. And even if you did find out later on that it was wrong, you still have this feeling that immigrants are bad, immigrants are dangerous. You say, okay, well, maybe that one thing isn't true, but I'm still right. My feelings are still right.
So do you remember hearing during the election about Google favoring Clinton over Trump?
I sure do. About how they were, it's not, I'm sure Google favors Clinton over Trump.
Google searches.
Yes. Google was engineering their searches to put out more positive things about Clinton, more anti-Trump things or something along that lines. I don't know exactly what it was, but
right. So they showed the guy who had that theory in the video, and he's American. I think his name was Richard something.
Yeah, whatever. Who gives a shit?
Yeah, I don't care about him.
Some asshole.
But it was quickly debunked. I mean, very, very quickly. But what happened is those Russian trolls latched onto it and amplified it. And
that was on Fox News.
Yep. It went to Fox. And in the video, they say what it did is it basically laundered it. Mm-hmm. It took it out of the crazy fear, put it through the Fox News washing machine, and it came out all clean for presidential candidate Trump to start spouting it at his rallies, which he did. So that's another way that they have helped spread disinformation is through amplification.
And that story also appeared on RT, the people who are so concerned with truth. And
So I want to talk real quick about Facebook, okay, before we move on. Mm-hmm. So Facebook has a blog post about, it's called An Update on Information Operations on Facebook, and it was published on September 6th, 2017 by their chief security officer, whose name is Alex Stamos. And he says there have been a lot of questions since the election about the Russian interference in the electoral process. And he talks about kind of what happened, about what they've discovered so far, and about how they're working on it, and kind of just goes through, here's what happened, here's what we're working on. And it's just basically kind of an overview. But he mentions in here, in April, we published a white paper that outlined our understanding of organized attempts to misuse our platform. So I clicked on that because I was curious about that. And first of all, a white paper is a government or other authoritative report giving information or proposals on an issue. And I'd never heard that term before.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, a white paper, sure.
Yeah. Maybe our academic listeners, are still like our PhD candidates are like, yeah, it's duh.
It's like rolling their eyes.
Yeah. But, for the people out there like us that aren't, absorbed in academia every day, that's what a white paper is, which I thought was kind of cool. So this is like a 13-page paper, which I read. And to be honest, it's actually really good. It's actually like good reading. The reason I wanted to bring it up is because they have some really good information in here. So what they talked about was, one thing is they said, it's the definition. So they said untangling fake news from information operations. And it says the term fake news has emerged as a catch-all phrase to refer to everything from news articles that are factually incorrect to opinion pieces, parodies, sarcasm, hoaxes, rumors, memes, online abuse, and factual misstatements by public figures that are reported in otherwise accurate news pieces. The overuse and misuse of the term fake news can be problematic because without common definitions, we cannot understand or fully address these issues. So they've adopted the following terminology. One is information or influence operations. These are actions taken by governments or organized non-state actors to distort domestic or foreign policy sentiment, most frequently to achieve a strategic and or geopolitical outcome. These operations can use a combination of methods such as false news, disinformation, or networks of fake accounts aimed at manipulating public opinion. Then they have false news, which is basically news articles that are not factual. And then they have false amplifiers, which this is really a lot of what the Russian trolls did. This is a coordinated activity by an inauthentic accounts with the intent of manipulating political discussion by discouraging specific parties from participating in discussion or amplifying sensationalistic voices over others. Now, the next one, Elizabeth, my God, we should be working for Facebook. Hello. This says disinformation, inaccurate or manipulated information content that is spread intentionally. This can include false news, or it can involve more subtle methods such as false flag operations, feeding inaccurate quotes or stories to innocent intermediaries, or knowingly amplifying biased or misleading information. Disinformation is distinct from misinformation, which is the inadvertent or unintentional spread of inaccurate information without malicious intent, which we like to call flubs. So they talked about the role of false news and information operations. They talk about the intent, the medium, and the amplification. They talk about what they're doing about it. So what they're doing is they're collaborating with others to find industry solutions to the societal problem. They're disrupting economic incentives to undermine operations that are financially motivated. They're building new products to curb the spread of false news and improve information diversity. And they're helping people make more informed decisions when they encounter false news.
Well, that's all very nice.
It is very nice. And granted, this paper was written by Facebook.
So they have an interest in having as many accounts and as many users as possible.
They do, but they don't want the fake accounts either.
No, and they don't. I don't think that they want to be part of this. They would prefer it if their tool wasn't being used for these purposes. But I think that, I don't know, I just think that they are probably going to err on the side of not deleting accounts and not curbing use.
When Mark Zuckerberg was creating Facebook for college campuses, I seriously doubt that he thought that this tool would ever be used for political discourse in in an election.
It's crazy. I think about that sometimes. Like, I think about like that movie, The Social Network, and him sort of back in the day, and what this has become. It just must be really something for him.
So a little bit more from this, I will say they did recently, they had shut down. They have some new ways of detecting things. And they said, for example, our systems may detect repeated posting of the same content or aberrations in the volume of content creation. In France, for example, as of April 13th, these improvements recently enabled us to take action against over 30,000 fake accounts. So
I hope so. I hope so. You know, you want to think the best.
So they are working with journalists and news professionals, and they're working with the News Integrity Coalition. And I looked up this, what they're doing with journalists. And basically what it boils down to is they're starting to realize that, hey, a lot of people get their news on Facebook. So let's make sure that it's actually informative and correct news. And how can news organizations use Facebook the best? And what can we do? So I think honestly, eventually, when people say, I get my news on Facebook, it won't be embarrassing anymore. Mm-hmm. It'll be actually, that is where you get your news.
Well, and sure, why not? I follow the New York Times on Facebook. I like them and I follow them, and I get New York Times articles in my Facebook feed. So there's nothing wrong with that. It's what you choose to put into your feed. And there's a lot of garbage out there, and people don't really realize that they're looking at garbage.
But it sounds like Facebook has recognized and is working towards a Facebook that doesn't have as much garbage, and that it's easier to get better news on. So that's good. And they're definitely, this is an evolution.
Yeah.
You know? So that white paper, like I said, is actually pretty interesting. So if you want to go to the PBS article and click on the link that takes you to the blog, and then click on the link that takes you to the white paper, because this is what we do, people. We click on links. Go to
the PBS first. And
go to the PBS first.
And watch the two videos.
Watch them both, definitely. So let's go back.
The second one is talking to the gentleman who wrote piece for the New York Times.
You want to talk about that?
About the IRA.
That's really good. Do you want to talk about that one?
Sure.
This is by journalist Adrian Chen, and he wrote an article in 2015 for the New York Times Magazine.
Well, just really quickly, he talks about the Internet Research Agency. He talks about the people behind it and some of the fake stories that they've put out. And he also talks about how he personally became a fake story.
Yeah.
So interesting how he met with someone in Russia to talk about this. And
she was a former troll. She worked at that place.
And she said, well, I'm a little bit concerned about this. I want my brother to come. And he says, okay, fine. And so he goes and he meets with them. And the brother is this skinhead looking guy with swastika tattoos, which he finds odd. But they're in a public restaurant.
Yeah, right. And they do their interview.
Totally mundane, fine interview. And then later on, he becomes part of a story that is on the internet saying that...
Well, they filmed him.
Yeah, they filmed him surreptitiously.
Somebody sat there and filmed him with this skinhead guy. Mm-hmm. And then they said he was trying to promote white nationalism or something crazy.
Yeah, crazy. It's crazy. So it's really interesting. And both of the videos on here are worth a watch.
Because I'm really sure that Adrian Chen was trying to promote white nationalism. Jesus. Yeah. They picked a bad mark. So that was really interesting. This PBS, man, they really knocked it out of the park with this one.
Yeah, they sure
They did a great job. And there's 9 links in this article that take you to other links and other links. So literally, if you actually want to read every single link and everything in this article, you probably need to set aside like an entire Saturday. So
don't scare them off, Beth. No, it's easy.
But lots of good information. Lots of good information. So Elizabeth, anything else you want to talk about?
Yeah, this whole thing about Facebook and the ads and the Internet Research Agency kind of goes into the next story that I want to talk about that was broken by the Daily Beast. It says, exclusive, Russia used Facebook events to organize anti-immigrant rallies on U.S. soil. So what we've been talking about before is influencing the way people think. This is actually influencing what people do and having a direct impact. Organizing political rallies. This is nuts. It's absolutely nuts when I saw this.
Yeah, so Daily Beast broke this story, and it was written by Ben Collins, Kevin Poulsen, and Spencer Ackerman, and it broke on 9/11 of 2017. And just to be clear, I did double check the Daily Beast at mediabiasfactcheck.com. That is never going to get easier to say. Mm-hmm. They do have a left bias and a very high factual reporting rating by them. So definitely a good place to get some news from. So a couple of things about this article. It says the Facebook events, one of which echoed Islamophobic conspiracy theories pushed by pro-Trump media outlets, are the first indication that the Kremlin's attempt to shape America's political discourse moved beyond fake news and led unwitting Americans into specific real-life action. That's not good.
Yes, I can equivocally say that's not good.
Yeah. This is the next step, Clint Watts, a former FBI agent and expert on Russia's influence campaign, told the Daily Beast. The objective of influence is to create behavior change. The simplest behavior is to have someone disseminate propaganda that Russia created and seeded. The second part of behavior influence is when you can get people to physically do something.
Like pull a lever for Trump.
Jesus Christ. Okay, I'm been following Clint Watts on Twitter.
I was going to say Clint Watts, former FBI agent and current stalking obsession of Beth.
You know, on Twitter, okay, some people you can email, you can like direct message, and some people you can't. And so like Maggie Farley is a great example, or Christian. We were able to email them off Twitter and say, hey, we'd love to do an interview with you. Would you be interested? And they said yes. Because
they're awesome people.
Yes, they are awesome people.
As Christian Picciolini.
Exactly. Yes.
Of Life After Hate.
Yes. I just call him Christian. But Clint Watts, I mean, like, oh my gosh, I can't email him to ask him if we could interview him because he is an amazing resource. And of course, like, maybe he would say no because he's busy doing, like, I don't know, Meet the Press with Chuck Todd. But, you know, you never know. And so
Chuck Todd is so boring. We're so much more fun.
Yeah, exactly. Just asked Christian. He said he had a great time, got to be himself. So I've tweeted at him a couple times to be like, hey, we'd love to have you on. And crickets so far. But he is the expert on Russia and them interfering with our crap. So definitely really good source here. So what happened was there was an event hosted by the Facebook group called Secured Borders, a punitive U.S. anti-immigration community that was outed in March as a Russian front. The Facebook page had 133,000 followers when Facebook closed it last month. Although 48 people clicked that they were interested in the protest, only 4 said that they went to the city council chambers that day, according to the event page. Possibly.
Yeah, I was going to say, because they were closed. It was a Saturday.
Yeah.
And I don't think very many people showed up, so I don't think it was very successful.
No, and it says it's even possible to claim attendance on Facebook at an event that didn't actually happen. So this is one of my favorite all-time sentences, like, ever. This says, far-right pro-Trump fire hoses, Breitbart, InfoWars, and WorldNet Daily had pushed a series of stories implying immigrants were taking over Twin Falls since the beginning of 2016. The stories reached a fever pitch in the month before Secured Borders events. Wait a second.
We know about that.
InfoWars? Alex Jones? Idaho?
Twin Falls, Idaho. Yeah, we did a show about all this.
Yeah.
About Chiobani, or decent people at Chiobani.
So I want to read you a little bit of this. It says, InfoWars and Alex Jones published videos with the titles MSN covers for globalist refugee import program after child rape case, and Idaho yogurt maker caught importing migrant rapist, which have since been removed. When Chobani sued InfoWars over the claims in April, Jones initially claimed that he was not backing down. I'm never giving up. I love this. And that I'm choosing this as a battle. On this, I will stand. I will win or I will die. The next sentence says, Jones settled 3 weeks later.
and was forced to issue a retraction.
That's awesome. So it goes on to talk about the TB claims and everything that we talked about in that episode. Again, why are we not working for these people, Elizabeth? Anyway, it was so crazy to see that like tied up together. So when you're seeing all these things on these right-wing websites that are just crazy, it's amplification that they're getting from Russian trolls. That is fucking nuts. I don't know how else to say that.
Well, and if you could manage to convince some of these people that what they have been taking in is propaganda from Russia, I really don't even think it would make any difference.
They won't believe you.
People are so reluctant to change their worldview.
Yeah.
You're just not going to have anyone the type of person who would believe this type of thing is not going to back down from those beliefs. You know what
I just thought about? Russians, propaganda is like their thing. Mm-hmm. They have been fed propaganda their whole lives. No wonder they're so good at it. Mm-hmm. That's what they know. And here they are. They're pumping out this propaganda that is working against Americans. Yeah. And Americans are like, what? Yeah. That's not true. No.
Yeah,
that's not true.
Well, if you're, anytime that you see something that conforms with what you think, you're just, you're going to be more apt to accept that. And then when this just keeps on getting amplified and people keep on seeing this, you're going to have more people as it fans out from this base of racists and people who believe these terrible things. You're going to have more people who get caught up in this and it becomes bigger. And the thing is, though, it's never going to change. Once you've planted these seeds in these people's minds, they're not going to, I'm not saying never, like it could happen. They could start to learn about what is a good source of information, how to think critically, and start to accept some of the ideas that are on the evil demon left. But that's not going to happen easily, and it's not going to happen when they're still listening to Fox News.
Right, and when Fox News is still laundering amplification from Russian trolls.
Yeah.
So
damage done.
Yeah. So you found another article about this too.
Yeah, the New York Times did an article that talks about this incident about, it's called Purged Facebook Page Tied to the Kremlin Spread Anti-Immigrant Bile. It talks about the things that are in the Daily Beast, and it goes...
I have to stop you really quick. This is by Scott Shane. Do you think when Scott decided to become a journalist that he thought he'd be writing an article that was titled Purged Facebook Page Tied to Kremlin Spread Anti-Immigrant Bile?
Like, I'm sure he'd be like, yeah, I know those words, but not in that order.
Or the New York Times. Like, not like...
Well, and then let's talk about the images at the top of this page. Like, these are posts taken from Secured Borders. So there's 3 images. One of them is just, it's a picture of Donald Trump. It's a cartoon representation of Donald Trump standing at a wall, holding a cartoon small Mexican person wearing a green, white, and red shirt. And he's upset because he's about to be dropped over the other side of the wall. And Donald Trump is smiling. And it says, "You have to go back, pal. More than 30,000 criminal illegals arrested in ICE raids all over the country." And then there's another picture of some people protesting sanctuary cities. And then another one that's a picture of America, and it says, "We're full, go home. No more refugees, no more illegals, deport them and keep them out, like if you agree." So these pictures illustrate the type of sentiment that you'd find on the Secured Borders page. And it goes on to talk about some of the fake things that were on these inflammatory posts about how there was a huge upsurge in violence since the refugees came to Twin Falls, Idaho, which is just false.
Not true at all.
Yeah, and the image that's associated with the Secured Borders page is this very scary picture that looks like something on a horror movie poster or DVD box. It's a white girl or female, youngish, with a very scared open eyes, and there's a brownish hand over her mouth.
God.
And it says "Citizens Before Refugees." And it really does look like a horror movie, so it's trying to incite fear.
That just makes me sad. Like, that people actually feel that way.
Yeah. And so it says in this article that, 133,000 people followed this page.
Yeah. Doesn't it talk too about some of Congress's response?
Yeah, it talks about Senator Mark Warren of Virginia and how he told reporters that he thinks that Facebook and Twitter should testify in public session about the Russian use of their sites. And that he thinks that this is just the tip of the iceberg. Because here we are over a year later. Yeah. And we're just learning about these things. So they're not, I get that they wrote a very nice white paper that says what they're doing, but they're not being forthcoming.
Right.
And I understand that you have business secrets and you want to be protective of that, but this is very important. And I bet you knew what was going on when it was going on, but who knows? Who knows what they know?
Yeah, until they do have some privacy issues, and there's some things that they're probably trying to grapple with and figure out what do they have to do and what should they do.
Yeah. And I don't know, we were talking about Mark Zuckerberg earlier, if he was, if he's like the frog in the boiling pot of water.
Yeah.
It's just at what point are you like, oh my God, holy shit, what is going on?
Right.
Maybe a little bit here, a little bit there. Oh, Donald Trump gets elected.
Yeah. He's like, I just wanted to give people a way to connect with their friends. I didn't know that the Russians were going to get involved. Well, what it looks like it says in here that Senator Warner calls it the Wild Wild West. That's what he calls social media right now, which is kind of apt. I mean, it really is. it's like we're really just figuring out how this should work and what kind of rules and regulations should apply.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's all really important. But in the meantime, we're being bombarded with this stuff, and it's being used as a tool.
In the meantime, Trump is our president.
Yeah. Well, it's being used as a tool. They want to stop the spread of democracy. That is their goal. They want to destabilize democracy, period. The U.S., as it says in this article, the U.S. has been inspiring pro-democracy movements within Russia and at its borders, and they do not care for that.
It looks like it says here there is Jonathan Morgan, a former State Department advisor who's studied Russian online operations at his company, New Knowledge, said the Facebook activity underscored the broader Russian goal. It went beyond attacks on Mrs. Clinton or support for Mr. Trump in last year's election. He says this is more about destabilizing democracy and pitting us against each other to limit the influence of the United States on the world stage.
Yeah, if we're dysfunctional.
Shit.
Yeah, and we were ripe for it, too. How easy was it to just come in and fan some of the flames that were already existing? And so it says that Facebook said last week that there were 470 inauthentic accounts and pages that it had linked to Russia and removed, and that they had bought about 3,000 ads between June 2015 and May of this year. And though some ads mentioned the presidential candidates of the elections, most appeared to focus on amplifying divisive social and political messages across the ideological spectrum, touching on topics from LGBT matters to race to immigration to gun rights.
Wow. I want to just note really quick in this article, they quote a Clinton Watts, a former FBI agent, and now with the Foreign Policy Research Institute. I believe he goes by Clint. Just FYI.
That's what his friends call him.
I mean, yeah, I've seen him on some stuff, and he just goes by Clint.
Well, and they talk about in this article too, just to kind of wrap this up, that this gives Putin some leverage over Trump. If he knows that he has power over his base.
Oh, yeah.
That he can put things out there, and Trump needs to get on board with the same agenda.
Yeah. And so what's it called? The Internet Research Agency. Is that the right words for the letters? Yes. Mm-hmm. They think that it's funded by this guy who they call Putin's personal chef. Mm-hmm. And he's like a catering guy that basically owns all these catering things, and he does a lot of the meals for Putin. And so it's not like he's actually a chef in the kitchen, but that's what they call him, is the personal chef. And they think he's the one who's been funding this. And I looked up, just to research it just a little bit, I looked up Internet Research Agency, and it took me to a Wikipedia page called Web Brigades. And it says, the Web Brigades, also known in the English media as Russia's troll army, are state-sponsored anonymous internet political commentators and trolls linked to the Russian government. Participants report that they are organized into teams and groups of commentators that participate in Russian and international political blogs, internet forums, using sock puppets and large-scale orchestrated trolling and disinformation campaigns to promote a pro-Putin and pro-Russian propaganda.
Sock puppets?
Yeah. Do you think... Okay, so there's two options here. We could click on the link and find out what that means. Or we could assume that they're doing a children's show with sock puppets. That must be it, right? We don't need to click on this link. So sock puppets are an online identity used for purposes of deception. Which I'd never heard that before. This is like a very learning episode. We got white papers, we got sock puppets. I just thought those things were paper is white and sock puppets are for kids. Yeah.
Oh, Beth. So
I
naive. So
I
naive.
know. So a couple more things about this before we let everybody go drink some vodka, I'm assuming at this point. There's an article by the Times of San Diego. And I was like, the Times of San Diego, that sounds like a blog. You know?
That sounds
I don't
like
know.
one of those fake things, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, is this real? But I looked them up on Media Bias Fact Check, and they are rated neutral. It was the first time I'd ever had a news source come back as neutral and not to the left or to the right.
Oh,
So,
good on you.
So I'm like, Times of San Diego, I guess I need to favorite you. Sorry, I doubted you. They have an article called Russia Duped Bernie Fans Via Facebook, San Diego Dems Told. This is by Ken Stone, and it was actually published back on March 23rd, 2017. So this one's been out for a little bit. But this says Oliver Mitov was dispatched by the Kremlin to get Bernie Sanders fans to vote third party in the November election, write in the Democratic primary loser for president, or not vote at all. And this investigative journalist, John Matz, looked into it, is not sure who this Mitov guy is. He said he may be a bot, he may be a person or four, he may be living in Macedonia laughing. But basically, they've tracked it down that this, came again from an outside influence trying to get people, Bernie fans to not vote for Hillary Clinton, basically.
Yeah.
And then the last thing I want to mention is there's a new article that just came out about 17 hours ago. And this one is from TechCrunch. There was a couple. There was one from CNN Money as well. But it says, report, Facebook gave special investigator Robert Mueller detailed info on Russian ad buys. So at this point, Facebook has released a lot of information to Robert Mueller's team. And this article insinuates that they gave him more than they gave to Congress because they were worried about leaks. And that may be just this person is speculating.
Yeah.
But
that'd be understandable.
There is something, Facebook is turning over information to the special investigators. So, what do you think about all that?
It's depressing. It's just depressing.
Isn't it?
It's like you just have it coming on both sides, They're messing with the people on the far right. They're messing with the people on the far left. And, we just have to work very hard and stop being purists on the left.
Yeah. This is one of those things where when I first saw these articles coming out, I did want to bury my head in the sand and not take a look at it. And so I'm glad we broke it down because there might be some people listening who felt the same way, that they didn't really want to hear about it or look into it or figure it out.
Yeah.
So if you're one of those people, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you want to reach out to us and talk about the show, or you have any fake news that you'd like us to review, we're available. Our email is podcastfakenews@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter at podcastfakenews.
Also on Facebook.
Yes.
Same place.
Yeah.
And make sure to subscribe. And you can check out the blog that we released to go along with this episode. It will have all the links and maybe some cute pictures of sock puppets. Who knows?
Who knows if there's time for that? We'll see.
Maybe just an ad for vodka.
That was bought by Russian trolls. Damn it, we've been infiltrated.
Damn it!
Visit our Patreon page. If you enjoy the show and you'd like to support it, that's a good way to do that. We also have a website that you can check out.
Podcastfakenews.com.
Yeah.
That's where the blog is.
Yeah.
Probably important to mention the actual link to it. You're so smart, Elizabeth. Always helping me out.
Well,
Okay,
yeah, we're going to love you and leave you, and it's going to be a while before we get to come back and love you some more. So hang in there, and in the meantime,
spread jam.
Not lies.
We made it.
Yay!